How do I help my child learn to share? We're going to talk about that question in today's episode, thanks to the families of York City School District that requested this topic. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in this series, feel free to drop it in the comments. Before we start, I'm going to share something with you. It should come to no surprise, but sharing is hard. And it's hard because it requires social, emotional, and cooperation skills that your child may not have fully developed before they're put in situations where they have to share. We talked about one of those cooperation skills back in episode 9. So if your child is struggling to share, I'd encourage you to go back and watch that episode. It's called Turning Tantrums into Trade-ins. That episode was all about how to help your child learn to give up control of something that is valuable to them. Another reason why sharing can be especially hard is because children are often put in situations where they have to share with other children who may be learning as well. And as we know, children are unpredictable, so they don't always share fairly. And one last reason that we're going to discuss as to why it's hard is because your child's development and the expectation may be mismatched. So, for your child, from their perception, a lot of times sharing results in losing something, and therefore it's a negative experience. But in this episode, we're going to talk all about how you can turn sharing into positive learning experiences. To start, one of the best ways that you can do this is by modeling how you want your child to learn to respond. When you consistently set good examples, your child is observing and learning how to respond in different situations. So, one way that you might begin modeling sharing is by taking something you know your child likes, and you are actually going to share it with them. And this is going to give them the experience from the recipient side. They're going to experience the benefit of sharing. They'll see sharing as gaining something rather than losing something. So, for example, you take your child's favorite cookies and you open up and say, "Here, let's share these." And you're specifically going to use the word share in this context where something good is happening. You're creating this positive experience and you're modeling the words that are going to go with that action of sharing. So we talked about one easy way to start is by modeling, which is essentially showing your child what to do. Another simple strategy that we can use is I'm going to call this catch and reward. Meaning, anytime you see your child doing something that looks like sharing, you're going to attend to it. You're going to give them quality attention whenever you catch them sharing appropriately. So you see them doing something that looks like sharing, here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to try to give them your undivided attention in that moment. Second, you're going to label what they are doing as sharing and use a fun and friendly tone of voice when you're acknowledging them sharing. It might look like this. Great sharing! Depending upon your child, you may add some more descriptive language, such as, "That was so nice of you to share your blocks with your sister." So if you can catch these moments of sharing, another one might look like this. Your child brings you something to show you, and you just say, "Wow, That's a really big bug. I love when you share things with me. Or, thank you for sharing that story with me. I love hearing about what you did at school. Your child probably already views your quality attention as a reward. And you'll know it serves as a reward for sharing if you start to see them sharing more often. But I'm going to share something with you that can help them learn this skill even faster. Right after you observe sharing. So, of course, you're giving your quality attention, but you can add something else that your child would enjoy in the moment. So, you really want to make that interaction even more fun and memorable. You can give them a hug, play some music, get out a toy they haven't seen in a while. You can essentially add anything here as long as it's something they want at the time that you give it to them. And even better if you can mix it up. Keep it unpredictable. That keeps things fresh and exciting. Remember, your child is only going to learn to cooperate with others and share without help if the learning experiences are positive. So, especially in the beginning, when they're first learning the skill, you want to make these experiences as positive as you can. Because sharing produces something meaningful for your child, they're more likely to respond that way in the future. This is human nature. When we do something and something good follows, we're more likely to do it again. Remember, this is called reinforcement. You can think of it as a reward. Using external rewards that aren't part of the activity itself can build early success when your child is learning the value of the social rewards that are part of that activity naturally. Eventually, the reinforcement or the reward for sharing is simply that it feels good. We talked about modeling, you're providing good examples, and we talked about what you're going to do whenever you catch your child sharing. Now, we're going to capture or create more opportunities for your child to practice. Learning to share is just like any other skill. You learn, you improve, and you maintain your ability to do it through lots of successful practice. But the key word here is successful. Start where they're already successful and starting where it's easy. Here's some possible examples. Your child is sharing the same space, but they may or may not be doing the same activity as other people. Even if their child isn't interacting with the other people in that space just yet, it's still a step closer to sharing. So you can always find opportunities within things that are already going on. Then the next step might be using shared items and a similar experience. For example, maybe you have two coloring books, but they're sharing one box of crayons. Start with something that is low stakes. They don't really care about it all that much. So as they're coloring, you say, "Nice sharing the crayons." Again, you're interspersing that language in that activity. As with any skill, it's best to start where they're successful and take gradual supported steps. The next step might be a shared experience, but with separate items. So this time, there's two sets of crayons, but they're sharing one coloring book. If you can anticipate, it's going to be a little harder for your child to share. This is where you're going to provide that extra support so that they stay successful. You want to provide that support proactively instead of reactively. In other words, you don't want to wait for them to struggle. You want to set them up for success before sharing even becomes a struggle. For example, that might look like you color the clown and you color the lion. So you're providing some adult structure there until they're able to do that on their own to really guide successful sharing. But even though you've guided that successful sharing, you're still going to reward it as long as there's cooperation. Nice sharing the coloring book. Now I'm going to share some stickers. As your child demonstrates the ability to share without a lot of support, you can gradually increase the difficulty. But whenever you increase the difficulty, you're going to want to increase the support in the beginning. So now we're working on a shared experience with shared items. So for example, you have one box of crayons and you have one coloring book. I can already anticipate this might be hard to share. So another way that I can support sharing is to show a valuable reward before they have to share. This can increase the willingness to do something hard. So for example, the crayons are fun. They're not really that fun because I wouldn't have started with something super, super fun. That would be hard. But the crayons are somewhat of a fun activity and they're sharing them. But I know that the scented markers would make it even more fun. So I'm just going to hold the scented markers and give the direction to share the coloring book. Then I'm going to acknowledge when I see them both cooperating. You're sharing. I love how you're coloring together. It looks like we can share the scented markers now. And then you're going to immediately give over the scented markers when you see the cooperation. But that's the key, is only when you see that cooperation. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want to do that if there's any kind of challenging behavior. Those can discreetly go away at that point. Okay, so I've used crayon and coloring book in all of those examples just to kind of demonstrate a skill sequence. But it's important that you that you teach sharing across different situations. If you're always kind of using the same things, then it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to share in a slightly different situation. So the more you can vary these situations, the better. All right, here's a real life example here of how I guided an opportunity for my 2-year-old who's really just learning to share. And she's going to be sharing with her 7-year-old brother who has some strong sharing skills, but is learning to be a little bit more flexible when using them and interacting with other children. So I got out this paint with water activity. They both happen to really like it at the same time. They each had a paintbrush, but a shared cup of water, which stayed in the middle. That shared item wasn't too hard to share. So I started with some turn taking because while it is a different skill than sharing, it's slightly easier and I could practice at least with sharing the cup of water. So my daughter painted a page in the book and my son painted the water mat. So when she was done coloring the page in the book, I presented her with a choice. She could either paint the water mat or they could share the book. They would paint it together. giving a choice can be a helpful strategy because a lot of times when your child feels like they're losing control of something, having a way to control the situation, like if I don't want to share this, I can always paint the water mat. So that can help to make it a little easier. But the key is you want to make sure that you provide the choice up front. Don't wait until after they've presented some protest behavior because they might actually learn that problem behavior makes more options available. So again, always be looking at those proactive strategies when you anticipate that it's going to be hard. So she chose to share the book. So I also helped provide some extra support there, and I modeled some language for my son. I was trying to show him how he could share an activity. So I said, how about you paint this one and you paint this one? And which one do you want to paint? And again, modeling that language is going to be able to help when they have more advanced sharing skills when they're put in a situation without your support. So my support in that activity helped it go smoothly. But in the event that your child struggles, remember, it matters more what you do than what you say. This isn't a time for long explanations. If my daughter really was having difficulty sharing that book, a lecture about, why it's nice to share or you have to share, that would actually just probably make the situation harder to manage for everybody involved, actually. So the key is you want to stay calm, and that's going to help your child to calm down as well. And you might need to provide some other strategies to help them get back to calm. But when they calm, there's a pause, you can then provide some redirection. So I might have given her another opportunity to share a little bit just to practice. I might have helped a lot more in that situation, or I would have redirected to something that didn't involve sharing. So it might have been the water mat, but also that might have still been hard. So I might have had to redirect to something completely different. It's going to really depend upon gauging that situation. So if you force your child to share and they don't have the skills yet or the support to do it successfully, it's often just going to lead to more intense, challenging behavior and creates a negative experience for everyone. Remember, it's those positive experiences that promote progress. If things didn't go well, reevaluate those expectations and think, what can I do differently next time? Easy. So to leave you with a positive example, here are my kids sharing the couch, watching a movie. This is a shared experience. And we also shared a bag of popcorn. It wasn't one person's bag of popcorn that they had to share with the other. It was a bag of popcorn that stayed in the middle. They each had their own bowl. So I was able to model that. Here, we're going to share the popcorn, give a little bit to one, give a little bit to the other. And neither of them felt like they were losing anything. There was some mutual benefit. They were each gaining part of something. And if they finished their popcorn, I always had the opportunity to go back and share some more out of that bag. Giving something in a small amount, it's just going to stretch the opportunities to practice. They're going to need lots and lots of opportunities to practice, but thinking about how can I maximize the opportunities within the activity I'm doing. I can give a small amount so that I can practice sharing many, many, many times out of that bag of popcorn. Here's another example of how you could stretch the practice opportunities for one activity. Let's say you get out a bin of blocks and you say, let's build a tower. You're going to hold on to the bin and you're going to say, here's some blocks for you and here's some for me. And you've taken out a small amount. Then you're going to put the bin aside. So you're going to build the tower together. You're going to narrate and make the activity more fun by interacting with somebody else. This is a natural reason why we share, for the joy of the shared experience. So you both have used up all the blocks and you say, oh, we need some more blocks. Here, I'll share these with you. Here, you share this with me. Again, frequent opportunities to hear the word share in the context of a fun activity. And you can even provide opportunities for your child to share with you. So sharing, it's followed by something good happening. In this example, it was just simply continuing the activity. It got more blocks and we had more fun. So that's the basics of how you're going to help your child learn to share. Keep in mind, sharing is a flexible concept. The more you teach it across different situations and make sure sharing results in something good happening, the more likely your child's going to learn to share in new situations without support. Lots of different situations are going to help them learn to use that skill flexibly. So when to share and when not to share, what to share and what not to share. And you might even teach some ways to politely respond if they don't want to share. So once again, you might need to teach other related skills, but hopefully this gives you a good overview of how to get started. Now it's time to recap some of the important takeaways. Remember to always show your child good examples of sharing and reward it when you see it. If you see them sharing, label that concept as sharing. Say, nice sharing. And even sometimes deliver something even more beyond your praise. Then focus on those teachable windows. If sharing results in distress, it's unlikely that they're going to learn to just accept the fact that they have to share. Learning happens through positive experiences. It's those positive experiences that are going to add up. And progress leads to proficiency. The goal is for your child to independently perform the skill of sharing in new situations. It will take time, but it will happen. That's it for today's episode. If you found it helpful, I'd appreciate if you hit that like button. Then be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss the next episode where we're going to discuss how to help your child learn to wait for what they want. While you're waiting, visit that resource collection, which is linked in the description for more on this and other topics. A special thanks to Nicole Palumbo, Nicole Gill, and the York City School District for helping to make this episode possible. All right, see you next time.